Once the race is underway, it all looks a bit of a jumble, with sculls, pairs, fours and eights all mixed up on that naughty river. They'd have loved the sight, though, 100 years ago, and thousands of spectators would have cheered right along the course. For those were the great days, with the Tyne beating all comers, and especially the Thames, with oarsmen like honest Bob Chambers, once champion sculler of the world.
The Tyne with fame is ringing, for heroes old and young, fresh laurels daily springing, but now all men has sung in praise of honest Chambers, of Tyneside lads the pride, who's defeated White of London for £100 a side. Well, that is one of the songs about the great boat races which took place on the river down there 120, 130 years ago.
But why a song?
Well, songs were written because it's what the people wanted, what the 10, 20,000 people who watched these races wished to hear when they went out in the evening to the concert halls, early music halls which were emerging about that time.
So the two things grew up together, the rise of music hall on Tyneside and the rise of rowing as a sport.
Very much so, yes. I think you can almost peak the pair of them together almost to 2 or 3 years in the early part of the 1860s, middle part. We have the great songwriters like Geordie Ridley of the Bladen races and so on.
Did he write any rowing songs?
He wrote some rowing songs. Sadly, one or two of them have disappeared. Joe Wilson was another, Keep Your Feet Still, Geordie Hinney, who wrote them. He wrote one about Bob Chambers and the Bobby Charlton of the day. And Joe wrote a song about Bob winning a race down in London. And he set it to this tune, which about a year or two later became famous as the tune for another song. Probably recognise it. Oh lads, join in the song, we'll sing in praise of brave Bob Chambers. Oh lads, join in the song, for the championship it's won. There were three, I think, people would probably argue, maybe four, great individual racers in this time. There was Harry Clasper, there was Bob Chambers and Jimmy Renforth. And you see, if you saw them on the river, I'm sure this is the big man heading for the line, you know, the Jackie Milburns and so on. It's lasted, it's there in the local spirit, I'm sure.
Although the Tyne has never recaptured the glories of the 19th century, the sport took a long time to fade. Right up until the Hitler War, it was famous for its annual Christmas handicap, a week of fierce competitive rowing between professionals for 50 or 100 quid a race. Men like Jack Hopper of Hexham and John Clark of Gateshead, better known as Nipper.
So, well, if you had a really good row going, a book you...
In the old Victorian days, though, Tyne rowing often seemed dogged by tragedy. The heroic honest Bob Chambers, a giant of a man physically, came to an untimely end. Maybe he put too much into rowing. Whatever it was, he died aged 34 and was followed to a magnificent grave by over 100,000 people, twice the size of the best crowds ever turning out for First Division soccer. Harry Clasper, although living longer, got a tombstone in Wickham churchyard which might well have vied for sheer glory with the Albert Memorial itself. Again, the crowd which followed his water-borne cortege along the river was huge. Jimmy Renforth got similar treatment. He was really the darling of the Tyne, captain of its champion four. His tombstone shows how he collapsed at his oar while rowing away in Canada. He was just 29. When the news of his death hit the Tyne by transatlantic cable, you'd have thought the world had come to an end. Though, of course, the songwriters didn't miss the opportunity.
Oh, you cruel Atlantic cable, what makes you bring such awful news, when Tyneside's hardly able such dreadful news to bide? You cruel Atlantic cable, what makes you bring such awful news? When Tyneside's hardly able such dreadful news to bide. Me heart it beats, everybody greets, for I've heard it cry through the Dowley streets that we've lost poor Jimmy Renforth, the champion of Tyneside.
The entrance for today's race.
The Tyne with fame is ringing for heroes old and young, fresh laurels daily springing, but now all men has sung in praise of honest Chambers, of Tyneside lads the pride, who's defeated White of London for £100 a side.